They can hear us. No.
Okay. It's 5 o'clock now.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock.
We can start.
We can start? Yeah, sure. So, good evening, friends. Good evening, all the members of BMA and all the guests who are here. Warm welcome to all of you for this special session. And we all know that the technology is changing very fast. And for that, we have a special guest who has come to help us find out what are the key technologies which we should be learning and we should be focusing and we can be using it. And I hope you have all gone through the initial introduction part. But I would like to take the honors of introducing our guest, Mr. Deepak Ghaisas. And he is the chairman and chief mentor of Gencoval Group. And of course, in a cutting edge biotech area of healthcare industry. Mr. Ghaisas is working on bringing new invention and innovation in healthcare biotech area. And I come from healthcare, so definitely I really appreciate this particular part, which is going to be the future of the healthcare and biotech sector. And they're working on the curative and predictive diagnostics and delivery side of healthcare. His vision is to generate companion value for the healthcare companions by creating disruptive and innovative solutions to ignite a transformation in the businesses. Of course, I must say that Mr. Deepak Ghaisas is also a renowned angel investor and a venture capitalist. I can go on and on with his introduction, but I have picked up some key highlights which will be part of it. He is also a part of the promoter team to start SEBI approved PE funds under the name of Xfinity. His special interest is in the idea-based tech startups and IPR-based running ventures. He mentors various startups. And of course, prior to Gencoval, Mr. Deepak was vice president I-flex India, which was a very prominent, IT company. And he was also one of the founding members of the company in 1993. It was his strategic, financial, and operational acumen that drove the company into true multinational, Indian multinational. And of course, starting with just 1 million capital, the market cap of I-flex in BSE reached $4 billion. I think that is a mammoth one, $4 billion. And that is something reaching almost 130 countries around the globe. Besides, I would like to also mention that Mr. Deepak is the first Indian CFO to win prestigious CFO Asia Award in 2001. Today, Deepak has a unique position in finance, IT, biotech circles in India and abroad. He is sought after speaker at various national and international forums on the subjects like finance, technology, corporate governance, biotech, and future scenario buildings. His audience ranges from Adivasi school kids to boardrooms of some multinationals. His inspirational speeches are respected across the spectrum. We are so glad, sir, that we have the opportunity to listen from you, to be the coveted audience. Further to that, Ms. Deepak is executive member of NASSCOM Executive Council, vice president of Maharashtra Economic Development Corporation. Can I request Ronak to please mute? Hoimi, can you mute everybody except me and Mr. Deepak? Okay, thank you. So Mr. Deepak is also a member of a committee of Indian Institute of Bankers constituted for the purpose of drafting the curriculum for information system audit course for bankers, and a member of Internet Banking Committee of the Reserve Bank of India, which formulated guidelines on internet banking and security. So these are very, very small introductions. I must say it's a huge one. He is on the board of various companies like Shoppers Stop, leading retailer, USV. In fact, I worked for USV earlier, sir. Ugar Sugar Limited. And he is a qualified chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, alumni of London Business School. He is also a thought leader in building future scenarios For the last 25 years, Mr. Deepak is teaching at various management institutes as a visiting faculty, India and abroad, and someone who genuinely believes in constant learning and teaching. It does not come as a surprise that he makes it a point to take class in finance or management and now even biotechnology by interacting with students and sharing his experiences. So he is also a part of many NGOs. Mr. Deepak is a die-hard music lover and continues to play tabla whenever he finds time. So we would love to hear his tabla also. So let's have a tango here, sir, uh, with Mr. Deepak Ghaisas coming over here, and we have almost 156 participants. My dear friends, we will have a session by Mr. Deepak Ghaisas, and I will request you to keep on posting your questions in the chat box, and post that we will have the Q&A sessions over there. So, sir, can I request you to please take over the dais and please address us and share your thoughts with us, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Rishiji. Thank you so much for your generous introduction. And I must thank also Kavita madam, because she gave me this privilege of being invited to talk to this august audience. In fact, I had stopped taking webinars after a few initial months because one of the problems as a speaker I get is I can't see the audience. And unless you see the audience and their body language, I don't know whether I'm on the right track or not. But Rishiji, it is your responsibility in case you find my speech to be boring or going off the track, then probably you should correct me and stop me and get me back on the track. Because generally, last 25 years I've been teaching, and therefore till the bell rings, I don't stop. But now I got a timer, so I will put that timer on, and next 5 minutes I will talk. So by 6 I should be finishing it, and then we will have question answer on the topic. Is that right?
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
So the topic we discussed with Kavita madam was on technology. She wanted me to talk on technologies and changing business model. Because the way in which things are happening around the world, the new technologies are literally coming and hitting us on a daily basis. And it amazes us because at the speed at which the proliferation of new technologies is getting into, the amount of time it took for the radios to proliferate in the entire world versus the internet and versus the cell phones and versus the smartphones. The speed at which they are getting into the lives of ours. And I won't be exaggerating to say that cell phones have become almost a biological part of our body now, because without that, you just can't move around. And people get absolutely uneasy. I mean, they can probably live without oxygen for 10 minutes, but they can't live for a minute without a cell phone in hand. And they feel totally disconnected if the cell phone battery is gone. I mean, the guests come at home before you ask for the water, because that's an Indian tradition. First, what you have to give is the Wi-Fi password to them, so that they feel sort of at home and connected, and they feel comfortable. So that is the impact of technology that has sort of come up in life, and obviously it has impacted the businesses. And the new technologies, always remember that in history, every time the new technology has come, it has killed actually few businesses. And classic example of that is like Kodak, where the Kodak, I mean, as a chartered accountant, I have audited Kodak in Mumbai through A. Ferguson, where I was working. And I'd seen how great that company was, the amount of profits they were making on films and cameras and the film technology. But the fact that the digital cameras came, they probably did not see that. They did not change their business model. And today we don't even know where the Kodak is, or where the Kodak cameras are, or where the Kodak films are. Same thing with the company like Esquire, who was at one point of time the leading or rather monopoly on the video cassettes. And probably the new kids now won't even know what the video cassettes are all about. I was sort of lucky to see that company next to my I-flex office in Seeds, and they were flourishing business. And at some point of time, they just lost the complete market because the CDs came. They did not see those CDs coming in. The benefit I got is I could acquire their office and expand my company. But at the same time, the Esquire lost the business completely. And a flourished company doing great business model, suddenly did not change because of technology changes and lost it. Same thing happened. I can keep on giving examples, because the number of businesses which died because of new technologies are enormous. Now, so when new technologies come, and they are going to come, and the force of change is going to be random. There is no system by which it comes. There's no evolution. There's always a disruption and kind of an unpredictability of the new technologies that come up. And that is the reason why the businesses need to be very careful and look at it differently. And I would rather say that you cannot have the businesses running with only the experience of the past. I would rather say the experience from the past is of less relevance. I won't call it totally irrelevant, but is of less relevance. But what you have to do now to run a good business and successful business is basically to learn from the future. Predict the future and learn from the future, that what is going to happen in the market, what technologies, what innovations are going to come in, and how they are going to change my complete business strategy. And that is, if that is going to be the case, then I think to understand the new technologies is very, very, very important for the people to get it. And I would say that the innovations, especially the new innovations that are coming in, and that is something my observation for last 2 decades. I mean, in the sense that when the bulb was innovated, the bulb became the business. The electric bulb became the business, and even today bulbs are being sold as a business. But nowadays, the innovations are not successful standalone. They need to be collaborated with many other innovations together, and then that innovations, set of innovations, make a business sense, and they affect or force businesses to adopt them. And a classic example of that is, if you remember, 98, 99 was a dot-com era, and people invested huge monies in dot-coms. And probably people thought that that is going to be the great success model. But at the same time, what happened actually was the ecosystem for such businesses was not in collaboration. For example, in India, we were trying to use e-commerce or .com or internet with the speed of some 96 KB, and those modems used to come, make sounds and go off and on all the time. So business models were not wrong. The innovations were right, but the business sense was not making success because the ecosystem was not available. And when the innovations surrounding the technology of telecom came in, the fiber optic came in, and then all of us started getting the datacom line up to 100 Mbps, suddenly the e-commerce became the buzzword, and that innovation ultimately got the success. But it took almost 2 decades for that success to come in. Therefore, the point I'm making is that innovations, new technologies that come, one must understand and appreciate that innovation by itself, or the new technology by itself, may not guarantee a success if you're basing your business model on that. But you have to understand that innovation has to have the ecosystem, right? It has to have a number of complementary innovations giving rise to the success coming out of those kind of innovations or disruptions. Now let us look at what kind of technologies that we are talking about. And probably I may not be able to give the list of all the technologies that are coming. And I may be wrong if I say that I know all of them, because there are many of them which are still not known to the world. They are still in labs. They are still getting in. And Rishiji, you being in the pharma industry, you probably would understand better that kind of portfolios pharma companies keep of innovations are so secret that market knows only when the product gets launched. and not before that. And similarly, most of the innovations are not, new technologies are not even out or not known to the world. And nowadays the new trend goes in especially the IPR field, because the laws that people even don't choose to file the patent, because the patent, moment you file, the innovation becomes public knowledge and somebody can adopt it. And we always call there is a first mover disadvantage, because when the innovation comes, the new technology comes, the one who adopts it first in the market, experience shows that it is likely to fail, because there's a lot of teething problems or learning issues that come up. And the second person who comes in the market with that technology succeeds more, because he or she has gone through those teething problems before by somebody else and can rectify them and come in the market. So the business model, when you take up or make changes to, you have to understand the complementary innovations. You have to understand that you should not be victim of the first mover disadvantaged person. And then you move to the things of the new technologies that would change businesses. Now let's take a example of like 3D printing. I mean, 3D printing is something which is currently very at nascent stage. Like I can buy today a 3D printer of 20,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees, and I can do a 3D printing. But what is envisaged out of the 3D printing in future is really the manufacturing process. And maybe the business models of huge manufacturing companies with mass production may not succeed in future. And your business model has to be that 3D printing will actually manufacture a personalized product for a particular customer. Just to give an example, a classic example of that is hearing aid. That today hearing aids that are available in the market are generally of a generic size. And then one has to force fit that in my ear if I want to hear it, or even the same thing with your hearing buds, which all of us use while doing the internet conversations or the conferences like this. What can happen actually is that I will take a photograph of my ear and put it on the CAD cam, and the CAD cam will create a kind of an image of my internal part of my ear where the bud is going to go and fit. And then it will instruct the 3D printer using plastic and whatever the material required to create that kind of a earbud which exactly fits into my left ear and right ear differently, and then it manufactures. So the people who are manufacturing earbuds or the hearing aids will not be able to do the mass manufacturing. They will have to change it based on individual requirement of the customer. I mean, this is a classic, simple example that I can give. But other examples can be like the shirt or the trouser or the dress that I wear. I don't have to buy a standard size. I can go and buy the way in which I want it to fit to me, the way in which I want to fashion it, I want to do. So any apparel that comes, I can print myself and get it done. Same thing probably would happen to the buildings at a larger scale of factories and so on and so forth, where the entire printing will be done layer by these printers. And the time is not far off. I mean, probably another decade or 2 decades, the 3D printing will be in vogue. And as a manufacturing company, if I don't change my business model based on that, I'll be in trouble very soon. Similarly, biotechnology. I mean, we talked about biotechnology, and since I'm in that business, I can tell you that biotechnologies probably will change the complete scenario of pharma industry or the medical profession, because now the pharma industry or the current medical system does not cure many of your diseases, but they do a symptomatic relief and convert everything into chronic. So you keep on popping that pills throughout your life, like diabetes or like blood pressure and so on, or things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are never addressed successfully. But I believe that biotechnology would, or stem cell therapies would probably cure the things, at least the type 2 diabetes, for example, or can regenerate your organs through organ factory and actually replace your kidneys or your liver and probably cure your Alzheimer's and Parkinson's kind of diseases or any degenerative diseases by creating a regenerative medicine. That is the whole concept that is coming up. Similarly, even today, if you see the technology, the way in which they are affected, probably during any operation or any procedure that is adopted by the doctors or a surgeon, you don't have to make any cut beyond probably 4 inches, because then you insert endoscopic tools inside and completely do the operation without too much of bleeding and too much of cuts and too much of stitches. And most of these procedures are turned out to be a day procedure. And moment it becomes a day procedure, the hospital's rooms are going to be empty because they're not going to be used. Patients are going to go home during the daytime. And therefore, the business models of the healthcare delivery side also need to undergo the changes. And instead of having the rooms, 500 beds hospital, I can have 400 rooms operation theaters where the patients can be treated and sent home back. And unless you do that, those businesses will not be able to successfully run. And I can keep on talking on biotechnology for longer. But biotechnology will certainly change the things. Similarly, what will happen in nanotechnology is yet to come. But nanotechnology again will have, and ultimately what is going to happen is the biotechnology, nanotechnology, and information technology are going to converge in a way that they will create great solutions and great business models or business sense to succeed. And unless a business currently running successfully looks into that future, predicts that future, and makes changes in their own business model, it will not help. We're doing the current things successfully again and again may not guarantee you success in future. That is the whole concept. Same thing happens to artificial intelligence or machine learning, and that will clearly, for example, affect the auto industry, because the auto industry, the way in which it is looking for is the driverless cars. Or more and more autos today are sold not based on their sizes and colors and comforts, but it is sold more on how intelligent the car is. I mean, if you look at the Mercedes car advertisement, they talk a lot about the software that they use inside, the chips that they use. And today, I'm not sure whether you're aware, but worldwide, the auto manufacturing has suffered, and many assembly lines are stopped, not because the spare parts are not available or not because of the strikes of the labor, but because the chips which get into the cars are in short supply. All of the car is ready, but the chips are not there. And that is the problem with the current auto industry. So you can imagine the kind of technologies that are affecting, and what those chips mean is basically artificial intelligence or the machine learning. And you teach the computers or the computing powers how to drive a car, or when it asks me to take a rest, have a coffee break. And my car does all that today. If it finds an oil patch suddenly on the road, how it saves you, how the wheels will take over on their own, how you park your car, for example. All these are done by the AI, artificial intelligence. And same thing would happen in many other industries. For example, I'm on the board of IIT Kanpur, and IIT Kanpur, we are starting with a new biotechnology and healthcare side. And suddenly we realized that all these IIT engineers who will subsequently take up these courses, which are doctoral courses or postdoc courses, will actually create the equipment and the technology useful for the healthcare. And those equipment will help to monitor, to diagnose. Today, I have seen a chair where you just sit on the chair, and the kind of technology used there, it does the complete diagnosis of your blood, urine, bladder, liver, ultrasonic, x-rays, whatever things are done subsequently today by many equipment, that one chair does it. I mean, that kind of technologies which are being used, and therefore this machine learning. And one day, my fear is that one day probably one of the IIT engineers will be doing the operation on your body because he understands the technology and doctors probably don't. And machine learning has given all the medical knowledge to that machine, so it doesn't require actually a doctor, but a technician can do that. So that kind of businesses, different models that we are looking for. Or look at the augmented reality. I mean, it has completely changed the entertainment industry. Today, the competition for entertainment industry, or because the pandemic, especially the people did not go to the theaters. But the way in which OTT platforms, which are come up now, have changed the complete horizon of the entertainment industry. And people who were swearing by the entertainment industry, the way in which it was run before, are completely changing their views and adopting to the new platforms which are coming up and which are come. And one day it will so happen that probably my guess is that all these television sets will not be required at home, because all the OTT platforms will directly telecast to your house. And probably there'll be one pipe that will be entering to your house, which will bring you the gas, which will bring the electricity, datacom line, and probably AC also, and pure air. And that will change the complete business models of all these 4 or 5 industries altogether. But augmented reality is something which will definitely change the businesses or business models of the entertainment industry, the gaming industry, and so on. And last but not least on my list is green power, because the environmental concerns are so much now that if we don't do something today, probably our next generations to come in the next century probably will curse us, because we have finished most of the resources that this planet holds. And what is the solution? I mean, is the electric cars the solution? We don't know still, because we don't know yet that electric car, for example, is not using petroleum, but amount of electricity that it will use, it will burn a lot of fossil for creating that, manufacturing the electricity. And we don't know really, therefore, which one is better, whether using petrol is better or using electric car is better. But maybe one day the solar energy based or wind energy based things will come, and that will sort. But green power is something which will disrupt the complete business models. Now, when you look at these things, one thing is very clear, that one has to look at that what the changes will happen in the businesses. Clearly, the business has to adapt to the new technologies. And initially, in the beginning, I gave some examples of businesses who did not adopt or did not realize the changes, failed to continue. So business must adopt to technology. And it is not only adopting the technology or buying the technology and implementing it, but I think the change has to happen the way in which you do your business. And I'm sure, Rishiji, you conduct the things on digital side of digitalization of business. And many of us have realized that people think that buying software packages, buying equipment will convert your organization into a digital organization. But that's not true. Because if you're trying to get the technology which will help your current processes to continue more efficiently, that is not what is meant by adopting technology. Adopting technology means change your way in which you do your business. And that is what I mean by changing the business models. Because unless you do that, that investments in technology will not give it the same benefit, or especially the competitive advantage. There are many people, like in I-flex, we used to sell the banking solution, the core banking solution. And in any country, probably 5 or 6 banks or 10 banks would pick up the same software package. And the question normally they used to ask, if I'm going to use the same package, how am I going to be competitively different than the other banks? And the answer is to be that it is not the software package that gives you added advantage. It gives you the basic advantage, but the way in which you use it gives you actually the competitive advantage. So your business model has to be unique. Your customer experience has to be different. And if that happens, then your banking solution will help you to make those changes and get a competitive advantage. But it is not software or technology by itself will give you competitive advantage. I think second point in business changes is the talent, because most important is learning. And many people raise this issue that artificial intelligence and machine learning will do all kind of unemployment issues in the market. But I remember in 80s and 90s when computers were adopted in the banking industry, for example, Unions were against them, saying that the people will lose their job if the computers start doing their work. But that is proven to be wrong, because what we need to do is relearn or change your skills, or get the new talents to make use of these technologies. And in banking sector, especially when people adopted to these new technologies, the banking became a greater business, a more profitable business, and nobody probably lost their jobs. But they had to get reskilled, because getting reskilled is absolutely important. Learning all the time is very important. It is not only the people who create the technologies, but people who market them, people who maintain them, and people who use them. And ultimately, all of us as consumers who make use of it. All of us need to learn. And you can imagine the newer generation is adopting these new technologies very quickly than the older generation. There are many people who are above 60 now, probably still feel a little scared to use the smartphone. And their probably grandson or granddaughter teaches them how to use that smartphone, and how to book your air ticket or how to book your show ticket and so on. That is what I mean by the talent. The usage of technology also is a talent, and the talent must be adopted by the businesses. They must retrain their people. They must retrain the market, their consumers, and so on. But again, I'll give example of banking, because it is very, very highly secured area, and customers should know how to use the password, and what we call it as a social reengineering. So social reengineering has to be also done, that how you use it. And you can read today lots of news on how the senior citizens were robbed of their money by using their credit card numbers or their account numbers and so on. And these kind of social reengineering is required, and that is what I mean by the business change has to happen, and businesses need to take the lead on how to make this talent available on all the sides. Another thing that business change will come is the platform economy. We call it platform economy. And platform economy, believe it or not, it is going to be going to stay. And what I mean by platform economy is connecting retail to the consumer. And that's what Amazon does. That's what Airbnb does. That's what Uber does. That's what Alibaba does. So point is that I cannot keep on ignoring this platform economy, because it's a new technology, and these new technologies are coming in and trying to get adopted by the market, by the consumer. And so the business model changes that need to come. You have two options. One is you become part of these platforms and start making your products available on these platforms, so that your market reach becomes much larger. Your customer reach becomes much larger, even though it is virtual. But there are ways to market it. There are ways to reach to your customers. There are different ways to sell it to the user. So you need to adopt. Or alternatively, if you don't want to be part of this huge platform economy, then you create your own platform. And there are many companies who create their own platforms to sell it. But I can't keep on saying that if I got a brick and mortar, I'm on the board of Shoppers Stop, as Rishi said, and Shoppers Stop has been a classic example of brick and mortar retail shop. And we have got 100 shops probably in country. And all the time we see the problem coming in from the e-commerce guys. And we keep on looking at the possibility of multiple channels to be made available and so on. And then what we realize is that there is a different way to handle this rather than competing. And I always tell people that if I want to compete with these platforms, then I need not play the same game. For example, if I want to win over Sachin Tendulkar, I should not be playing cricket. I should be playing kabaddi with him. And then probably I can win. But cricket, I will never win. And the people who are competing with me, like Amazon or Alibaba, they are not people who are trying to make profits. They are trying to spread their consumers as much as possible. And while at Shoppers Stop, we are trying to make profits. Now, those two business models are different, and therefore you cannot compete with them with your model, and therefore you need to excel in the way in which you are doing it, the way in which your loyalty of customers is there, and that probably is more of a business model that will succeed rather than go and compete with these platforms or collaborate with them is the ideal situation. And many of us are trying to do the collaboration models with this platform. But fact is that platform economy is going to stay, and all of us need to understand that we have to collaborate either or create our own platforms. That is the way the business models will change. I think the next point I would talk about is more focus on business needs, because I've seen many people just go and buy the new technologies without realizing what the business need is. And that is where they fail, because they spend a lot of money, and in accounting terminology, we call it sunk cost. And these are very costly stuff which we buy and technology, but they are not useful for your business needs. And therefore, when you're buying some technology, adopting some technologies, I think what is suitable for your business is very important. You can change business model, tweak business model in a small way, but you cannot just buy the technology because it's available in the market. So one has to be careful on the business model, that what technologies I adopt, what technologies I use. I think the next point, which is very, very unique now, especially in the new technologies, is a pricing, because the pricing suddenly has become a key factor in your success. And there are kind of algorithms getting created now are so unique. And a classic example of that is airline pricing. I mean, in the United States, for example, I get the last minute ticket. And if I get a last minute ticket, the algorithms say that I can sell it at a heavy discount. Because if my flight is going to go without having 10 passengers inside, then I'm going to waste those 10 seats. But instead of that, if I give 50% discount and get those 10 passengers attracted to my aircraft, then I get those 50% into 10. So that additional revenue that I get. I mean, these kind of things, and these are based on operation research, based on game theory, reverse auction, and there are many things, intellectual things that get into it. But the pricing is going to be key, and you can see. I mean, my son, for example, knows that on Amazon or any other such platform, if he chooses the product and keep that in the cart, the platform knows that I'm interested in this particular product, but I'm not willing to pay that price. So another 8 days you wait and you get additional discount of 10% or 20%. And I keep it there for more than 1 week, then probably I get another 10%. So that pricing mechanism is so critical and crucial that it is going to decide. And I can assure you, again, with the Shopper Stop experience, that none of these new consumers who buy on a net are loyal to a particular seller. While in Shopper Stop, our experience is that we have a loyal set of customers. We have this First Citizen program, and probably the world's largest First Citizen loyalty program that we run. And those people give me like 70-75% of my sales. People are buying today on Amazon or on any other platform are basically going there on a price point. And if they're coming to me on a price point, then my pricing has to be a key success factor. So the pricing is going to be key, and the technology available today, pricing models which are available today, they online real time give you the pricing. I mean, Uber, you see, if I take a cab in the afternoon, my pricing is much lower. But if I take it in the evening from town to suburbs, my pricing suddenly goes 2 and 3 times more. I mean, those are the pricing models, algorithms that are built, and those are the key success factors. And your business model has to get adjusted to this flexible pricing, the demand and supply pricing, and those algorithms are very key, and those technologies are very key. Another advantage, probably I would say, that these new technologies give in changing the business models is the testing becomes a little faster. In the past, when you make a change on the business model, you have to sort of put in the market and see the success, whether the success is coming up or not. But today, when we make any change or plan to make any change, we can test them by simulation models. the technologies are available where we can simulate the change and see what the impact can be. And that really helps the analytical tools make it easy to simulate this and help your decision on both pricing and marketing and manufacturing and processes, that these changes, if they are made, how they're going to impact. And in software, what we call is the impact analysis is made. So you get to know, or your decisions become more learned decisions than just waiting for the market to react. The simulation models tell you exactly what are the changes. And I think use of that technology is very, very essential, and one has to sort of make use of that. I think now when you look at the business model per se, now what many people ask is, what do you mean exactly by the business model? And I would say business model is something that how a company creates value basically, or captures the value, and how company organizes itself, how company creates the value for the customers, what is the value proposition for the customer, whom it partners with is very important, how it structures its supply chain. And if you see the every aspect of it, you take supply chain, you take creating value proposition, you take the collaborations, each one has an impact of technology heavily on it. And therefore, when you decide on your newer business model, you have to understand the new technologies which are in the market, who is adopting what technologies, and when I collaborate, how do I get into a common platform? How do I get into a common technology which will benefit, or rather it will create a win-win situation, or rather than win-win, I would say win-win-win situation, because both the partners will win and ultimately the customer or consumer or market will win. And it is very essential to do that. At the same time, I would say that many people believe that new technologies will bring new products, but that may not be true all the time, because there are creative business people who have created, I would call, normally we say that the old wine in new bottle. Now we say that is the old business in new bottle, because the way in which it's adopted, and I'll give an example. Like when candles were manufactured and sold at some point of time in last century, electricity was not available. But when electricity came, the candle business should have been abolished or vanished. But today, if you see, the candles are sold more than probably what they were sold before, when the electricity was not there. Why? Because it was completely repackaged, completely new dimensions, new usage was given to it. And therefore, these business survived. Same thing would, I would say, happens to painting. I mean, portrait painting used to be the classic profession at some point of time of the artist, where the big people used to get their portrait done and get paid for. But when the photography came, probably this portrait business should have been totally abolished. But today, if you can see, the painting business or the painting market, or investing in art, as we call it, is more flourished. There's a lot of value creation in the art, and not because it is essential, but it is more of its perception value, and that creates a lot of. So point is that the older business with the new supply chain also can make a lot of new business models. So not necessary that you have to get into a new product, but you can still use the old product and make use of it. And classic example of that during pandemic, the adoption of technology was so fast that my bhajiwala started using WhatsApp as the technology. He used to receive all the orders on WhatsApp, used to get paid on WhatsApp, and he used to distribute them and get confirmation on WhatsApp. So suddenly he started adopting the technology, changed his business model completely, because he knew that the people can't come and buy vegetables from me, but I can still reach to them. And he simply used WhatsApp as a platform. Who taught him? I mean, is he a highly educated person? I don't think so. But the business need was such that he had to find a solution. And I think in India, we are so used to a lot of constraints that we suddenly realize that we can find a solution. And you don't require to be graduated or management graduate for that. You need to have a business sense. And all the people, rather I would say sort of provocative statement, that more educated you are, less adaptable you are, because you think that you know everything. But if people who are not really educated, their survival instinct are probably higher, and therefore they adapt to the new changes very quickly. This Bajiwala example was a very classic example, or my Bania guy next door is a classic example, how they changed their business model by adopting the technology, which otherwise they probably would have never thought about it if the pandemic was not there and lockouts were not there. So how do you go about it? So if you're going to create these structures, I think what you need to do is basically look at the different models that will come. And I categorize these models in 4 or 5, 6 areas where which can be a guideline for the new business models. I just talked about the 3D printing and so on. I think more personalized products and services are going to be the essence of the success, because if you have the more personalized products and services, that is what customer is going to require. And I call it as a power game. For example, today when the dinner happens at home, this is decided by the TV serial that happens on the TV channel. If the lady of the house is going to watch the 8:30 serial, then probably 8:30 to 9 there is no dinner provided. Now new generation doesn't like it because they don't feel it is comfortable that the TV channel decides my dinner time. And therefore, I need to deliver the product to the people, say serial in this case, like what Netflix does, is when you want to watch, I can give it to you. That is a personalization of service. And same thing with 3D printing I talked about is my apparels can be designed by me and done. Same thing with my cars, or same thing with my furniture. I need to get into personalized products. And I guess pharma industry also wants to get towards it, because paracetamol given of 600 mg to all of us may not affect the same way to all our bodies. So maybe I require 500 mg and somebody requires 700 mg, and that personalization has to happen. And the business models need to deliver that kind of more personalized products and services in the market. And I think technologies will allow you to do that. And therefore your business models, rather than getting to mass production, and what we call actually in technology is a mass personalization. For example, when I go on a share market site of my choice, I can create my own website, look and feel the way in which I want it, while they are running the same website on the background. But what I could see is I can make my own website, which is a personalized website for me. So I can see only the shares that I want to see, rather than looking at all the shares in the market. I can see only the bonds where I'm interested in. And that's how I can see the website myself and use it. And that is what I mean by mass personalization. And I think business models need to move towards mass personalization of products and services. I think the closed loop processes are the next thing which are going to dominate. And what I mean by that is currently all our products, what we manufacture, are being used and thrown away. Now people suddenly have realized that, say, take for example, the cell phones. I mean, if there are 100 crore cell phones which have been sold in India, what we are going to do with those phones afterwards? So they are thrown out, they are melted, they are disassembled, and they are cannibalized, but they create a lot of environment issues. So now the people are saying that the manufacturer is responsible to ensure that this garbage is collected back and being properly treated and used. And therefore now I think the new business models need to look at the closed loop processes, and whereby you can recycle the products yourself and use that material again and again. And plastic is a classic example. Now they have banned the single-use plastic. They want us to use that plastic again and again. And I think one of the things that I saw was the same plastic bottles are being used for the road building now, with the tar and with the concrete or whatever technology that they adopt and material that they adopt. But businesses need to move towards that. I can just keep on manufacturing products and people will use them and throw. But after they throw, what happens to them, the garbage? I think the land on this planet may not be able to be, there is not going to be enough to accommodate all that garbage. And somebody is going to get hurt, both environment-wise, health-wise, because of this garbage that is created, and especially electronic garbage or the plastic garbage. And the environment is going to get disturbed totally. And if that is the case, I think every business now has to see that how they encourage and adopt the closed loop processes. And you just can't dispose of your products after use. And that is, I mean, especially in Western countries, typical mentality was to throw them out. Even the cars have been smashed and thrown. But nowadays they are looking for the manufacturers to take the responsibility to ensure that the garbage is taken care of. And that's the responsibility. And that's how the technologies for manufacturing, the material for manufacturing used are supposed to be recycled. I think the third point I would talk about is on the asset sharing. In the past, I think most of the businesses used to adopt the process whereby I would love to buy my own asset. I mean, take the simple example of computer server. We try to run a SaaS model where software as service, and it failed because most of the banks wanted their own servers to be with them. They thought it was a confidential information and need to be with them. But I think the new way of looking at the business, that I would love to have my business model as lean as possible, as less capital intensive as possible. And then I should be able to share the assets. And sharing the asset is going to be a key factor. For example, the classic business model of that is Airbnb, that they don't have a single asset of their own. So they use the assets of others to make money and to create business out of it. I mean, even you take the Uber, for example, the Uber is not has not a single car on their balance sheet, but they are using somebody else's cars to connect between the driver and the passenger. So they just connect them. And so what they're doing basically is they're sharing the assets. And the newer technologies that will come will probably advance it further. And I must talk about it now, that say, for example, the blockchain technology, which is currently in the nascent stage, but the applications are getting built. But what will really happen is probably will not require banks, for example, or will not require Uber, or will not require Airbnb. Because what Uber does is connecting drivers with retail, the consumer. The blockchain technology by itself will do it. So I don't require any person to be there. Now you have heard about cryptocurrency. I mean, cryptocurrency, no one knows who owns it, right? It just happens to be there and is in market as well. But similarly, blockchain technologies probably will take out all these middlemen. I mean, Airbnb, I would call it a middleman. Uber is a middleman. They will all be, even banks are middlemen. We don't require banks, we require banking. And if the banking can be done by the blockchain technology, why we require a bank? Because they take my money and they lend that money to somebody else. They give me 3% interest, they charge 10%, and the 7% they enjoy it and create the value out of it. If that is what banking is all about, I think the blockchain technology will abolish all these middlemen in between, and the technology logically will take over this middleman job and connect people and share the assets. They will not even require additional servers because they will go and choose the places at various servers, wherever the place is available or space is available, they will go and take that space and use it. And that is real classic example of asset sharing. And next, I think the things are going to happen is again on the asset acquisition. People are unlikely to, because everyone wants to keep their organization lean and mean, then they will not adopt to take the asset on their books. So probably what Microsoft has done now, or many of the software companies have done, that you pay only when they use it. So usage-based pricing. So if I use Microsoft Office for 10 minutes, then I pay only for 10 minutes. I don't have to buy annual subscription or things that I don't require, because when I buy Office, I get 10 other programs with it, for which probably I'm paying unnecessarily because I'm not using them. So I will use only, I will pay only when I use it. And the same thing will come, like what happens for water. I mean, water, you don't pay a monthly charge. You pay based on meter. When you use the water, you pay for it. You electricity, you use it, pay for it. Similarly, you use it and pay for it for the software, for the hospitals, for the automobile, and almost every other service. So we call it in software, we call it SaaS model, which is software as service. So you make them use the software for as much time as they want, and they take it. They take the money for that. I think it's going to be more collaborative in future. So all business model need to be collaborative, because as I said, the innovations and technologies are going to be coexisting. The ecosystem has to support it. And if that is the case, then probably the collaborative business models are going to be very, very important and critical. And one has to keep on looking for that businesses around you who will help use the similar platforms, similar technologies, and can be part of your entire chain or value proposition. Because coexistence is going to be very important. It is a competition and cooperation together has to exist. And I think, again, I will go back to my software industry, and NASSCOM is a classic example of that, where we all compete with each other, but still we cooperate with each other in such a way that as an industry, it gets benefited totally. And in the process, the country gets benefited, the economy gets benefited, because we create value out of it. I remember when we had made first $10 million export in 1987, 88 somewhere, and we didn't have even IT ministry, and we had gone to Delhi to present to the electronic secretary, and we said we want to make $100 million, and people had laughed at us, saying that you are $10 million and you want to make $100 million is too much. And of course, the rest is the history. Between 2 decades, 3 decades, I think Indian IT industry has created that business model, which is collaborative. While competing with each other, we collaborate and we create a great value out of it. And last but not least, I think the organizations need to be adaptive and agile. More and more, the current structures of business organizations, which is hierarchical, is going to go away. It is more going to be flatter. You're going to outsource many things, because if you are not competent, you are not, this is not your specialization, you should not be doing those things. I mean, we do, for example, we don't cook the food for the people. We subcontract it to the caterer to come and serve the food for a factory. Similarly, the things which are not your competency, you outsource it. And more this is going to happen. And there's a new class of people who are going to come, or who already come, called self-entrepreneurs. Now Uber drivers are like self-entrepreneurs. Or a classic example that I love to give is cricketers, like the West Indian cricketer who does not play for his country, but he plays whoever pays him. So he's an entrepreneur by Chris Gayle is his name, and all of us love him watching his batting. He plays in IPL also, but he is standalone professional business person or entrepreneur. So he goes and plays for the team who pays him. The Uber driver is a guy who buys his car and lends his service. So Uber doesn't employ none of them. And similarly, I think this adaptive nature of organization, the flatter organization, and more so of a result-oriented organization are going to come as a business model. And these kind of businesses will help people, because remember that almost 90% of species died since the history that we know. And if dinosaurs were alive today, probably you and me will not be talking, because human beings survived because dinosaurs went away. Same thing happens in businesses. The new technologies come, 50% of companies vanish. And if you see the Fortune 500 company list between 1950 and 2000 and 2020, there are very few companies who have survived in 500 list. There are many companies who have just gone away, and there is a plethora of new companies which have come, like Facebook and Google, and all come in Fortune 500, who are recently formed companies. They don't have a huge history, but technologies have made that business model so valuable that they could beat old traditional industry in the United States and became the businesses. And therefore, value creation is important. How you deal with your people, your customer, what is the value proposition, how you conduct your supply chain. And just to recap, I would say that don't buy the technology because it is available. Understand, focus your business processes, your business model, and then based on that, you adopt the technologies that are useful for your businesses. Change your business models so that the new technologies, new customer, new millennial customer group understands it, appreciates it, gives them the best user interface and user experience, UI and UX as we call it. The digital marketing is the way to go around. So the way in which things are done are entirely different. And if you don't change it, I think you will not survive. So innovation, speed, and integration. These are the three major factors. If you can innovate things at speed, you integrate in your business model, then you will succeed. If you just can't do that, I think the business will go away like dinosaurs went away. I think Rishiji has written a book on digital dinosaurs. So I just thought I should mention dinosaurs. So I think that is a way to go. So the new technologies are great. They're unpredictable, they're random, but changing business model is a constant. And if you want to succeed, survive, and flourish, I think make changes in business model based on this. I think I'll stop here. It's 6 o'clock, and then I will stop here and open it for the question answers. Rishiji, if people have it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. I think a big round of applause for the great session, I must say here. Before we start asking for questions, we have got a lot of questions over here. And I must say, I was making notes of your session, sir. I think I made down that, the models which you have suggested are over 6 models, 6 to 7 models, right? From personalized product services to recycling, particularly environment part, and of course, asset acquisitions, as well as collaborative way, and the new class of, entrepreneurs which are coming up. So great aspects. Of course, I have a lot of questions for this, but before I ask any question, I would like to ask the questions from the audience. And one of the questions which our member from BMA, Mr. Bigyan Verma, has asked is, how will AI, ML, or PA ever be efficient in healthcare industry unless data integration prevails and made use of? Your views, please, sir.
Sure. I mean, data integration is absolutely given because AI and machine learning and artificial intelligence are based on the valid data getting into it. It's like teaching a child a wrong thing. The child is, even though it is intelligent, is not going to do the right things. So same thing with the machines. The machine is like a child. So what you teach him, it will adopt the same thing. Okay, and more the data, the predictability of the AI or ML is higher. So it is not the small data that will create. See, I mean, simple example I'll give you, very, very primitive example, is that if I ask you what is 6 sevens are, and first time you will calculate and tell me 42. Next time when I ask you, you won't calculate. You will immediately tell me 42, right? Because you remember what was told to you before. Computer, every time you ask, it will calculate again and again. Now this part was taken away, that computer will remember 42 as an answer, and next time without calculating it will tell you. That is what machine learning is all about. So unless you give the right data, I mean, 6 sevens are, if you don't give the right answer to it, obviously it is not going to give the right answer on its own. Okay, so integration of data, cleansing of data, populating more and more data into it is very important. And I can assure you that as time passes or the years will pass, the AI will become stronger and stronger, or machine learning will become stronger and stronger. My only fear is today, even though you have in aircraft, for example, they have got 4 computers to work as a redundancy. Okay, but still pilot is required, because in case all 4 fail or some emergency crops up which was not taught to the computer in AI system or machine learning system, then a human brain should be able to take the decision at the nick of the hour. problem is the AI and ML will reach to a level where even that human interference is not required. Probably it will adopt a kind of a learning which 100 of us can adopt it together. It will started passing the judgment on its own. The only problem is I think AI and ML both don't have the emotions. And many times our decisions are based on gut feel and emotion. But I think a lot of data will create that gut feel even into the machine. But a classic example of that we give is when the automated car, a driverless car, when it is driven and some object comes in front of it, or two objects come, it has got a choice to go and hit one of them. What it will do is measure the thickness of both the objects. Okay, and then so one is human being and one is tree, and so to realize if I hit the tree, my damage will be more. If I hit human being, the damage will be less. So it will go and hit human being. Okay, but it has to be taught that human being is more valuable than the tree in a given choice. Both are valuable, but tree won't get sort of dead, but human being can get dead. So these kind of data integration is required. I mean, that's what I mean.
Deepak sir,
Yeah.
my question was, can I just, Rishi sir,
Yeah,
my
please,
question
please,
was,
please.
yeah, my question was, the fact that data is not integrated in India, so like the hospital, the data of one particular hospital is not really integrated with another hospital. So we always have a shortage of data, so in the absence of this kind of integration, will ever, unless until the time it happens, I think there will be a limited scope for AI and ML and predictive analysis and all things like that, especially treating patients.
I agree with you. In the current situation, that is the scenario. But
Right.
I know of at least 3 startup companies who have started collecting and integrating this data only for healthcare, and including imaging, including there'll be connected equipment. Like for example, if your ECG is required, you don't have to go to the doctor. I can get it ECG done on my phone, and the phone will integrate that with the doctor's phone, and it will inform doctor that this is my ECG, and probably it will start even suggesting that what is wrong in the ECG before doctor tells. Okay, so that is AI. Okay, or that is machine learning. But the integration, as you said rightly, is absolutely correct. Only thing, there's a fear always of privacy, especially in the healthcare data of an individual. And that security of data is very important, and therefore people are little apprehensive about storing that data. So, but we can store it without a label for the decision-making purpose of a prediction model basis. But each individual can have his own data available with him or her, and whenever they are admitted to the hospital, the entire data is available to the new doctor who happens to be there on the job, and he or she can talk about it. So those things are happening. And the startups are actually a subscription-based model, and you can be a member of that and start integrating your own data for your own benefit. But at hospital levels, whether it will happen or not, I don't know, because that is where I said competition and cooperation comes. I don't know, 2 hospitals will talk to each other for patient data because there's a competition, right? Even 2 doctors don't talk about it,
They will never talk.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
I hope you got your answer, sir.
I did. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
So there are a lot of wishes to you, Mr. Deepak, from your friends, starting with Mr. Sri Khande Bhal and NS Rajan from Air India. So they are sending their greetings to you. Yeah. So there is a question that from Sandra. Difficult for blockchain to replace a bank. What about the risk management?
Well, I mean, the same risk management modules that are adopted by the banks, because ultimately the stop loss situation or wherever the risk management is required for taking positions, I think technology can take that. And today, most of the things are done by technology. If you see the most international banks, after what happened to British Bank in Hong Kong, that they just was sold for a £1 price, and the entire bank was sold because somebody took a wrong decision on a position, and the risk was heavy. So today the risk management is done mostly by the technology, and human being just ensures that those are the data is provided for, but the decisions are taken by the computers nowadays. So both in capital markets, both in bond markets or in exchange market, So wherever there's a risk there, or even KYC is done now mostly by the machines, and there are parameterization happening. So risk management is not a problem because it's already adopted by or taken over by the technology. What I mean by blockchain is more of that middleman's job that banks do, or what Uber does or Airbnb does. That will be vanished. And as I said, we require banking. We don't require banks. So banking will be taken care of. Then I don't think we require banks. But again, as I said, bank also sells a trust. So you and me will not. We still are hesitant to use a credit card or unknown site because we don't trust it. But we trust the bank. So banking business is also selling trust. So that will remain still. But slowly, as we start believing in technology more and more, probably this will happen. But again, this is I'm not saying it's a wish list, but I'm saying as a business model, one has to understand that this is where the industry will reach.
Right, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Vikram Hande. He says that digital transformation is a current trend to adopt technology. How SMEs can adopt the same?
Good question. I mean, this is the question where many people ask, and that's where I said the asset sharing is one of the models. Say for, and we are trying to do that kind of experiment where in MIDC there are 15 companies, all are under SME sector, and they can share the services of the technology because individually they can't afford the technology, and even if they can afford buying a machine or a technology, they can't maintain it because they can't hire the talent and retain the talent for the purpose. And therefore, I think sharing the assets is absolutely important. And also the usage-based pricing will help them because SME can pay subscription based on how they use the technology. I mean, cloud computing, for example, cloud computing, you can just go on a cloud. You don't have to have a server in your office. So cloud is a classic example of how SME can adopt. But again, Mr. Hande, I think my apprehension is that in India, SME sector wants to be an SME all the time. We want the SME sector to move towards a bigger role and become bigger so that they don't remain in SME for ages together. And that's the way they should look at the business.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. There is another one from Mr. Shikhande. Good evening, Deepak ji, and thank you for a comprehensive assessment for the future business models. I like the possibility of close CCT and manufacturing collaboration. You are a die-hard optimist, but the effect of some serious disruptive events can impact business models. For example, global warming, terrorism, income disparity, driving people to violent behavior, etc., etc.
Well, I mean, that will be always there. And there are some unknowns, as we call them. I mean, General Powell in the United States had put up those 4 quadrants, that known, unknown, and known, unknown, and unknown. So there will be always unknowns. You know, like earthquake is unknown. We never know that it will happen. Terrorist attack, I won't call it unknown. We know that will happen. Floods will happen. They do happen everywhere in the world. But nobody predicted 9/11, for example. But it happened. But again, the human being learns out of these things and starts adopting to this business. So disruption will happen. The status quo situation will never be there. Geopolitical situations will change. Pandemic is again unknown. We never imagined pandemic 2 years back, but it happened, and all of us survived. That's a great thing. Even in India, I think the effect was not as severe as many other countries faced in terms of deaths and so on. But of course, people who died was bad. We don't have the answer. We still don't understand the virus. And Rishiji, you know that the healthcare or biology is one of the most mysterious subjects. That knowledge of biotechnology or biology is so weak as far as all of human beings are concerned. I think it is as mysterious as the cosmos is. So we carry that with us. So those are unknown things. So I would assume that they will be there. Only thing what we should know is, and that's where I say optimism is the best thing. Attitude, what attitude you adopt, and how quickly you get up after that fall. is very important. And every businessman understands that. I think you're on mute, Mr. Rishi.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you that human body is the most complex sector, a machine rather I call it. And personalization has come just now, or hyper personalization has come just now. But I remember when I used to sell Dilantin, which is a basically medicine for epilepsy. Doctors never used to change the brand from one company to another, because one particular brand suits a particular body. Although the salt is same, phenytoin sodium, but it may not suit the other brand.
Correct.
So there was Aptoin and there was a Dilantin. So the neurologist will never change it. So the hyper personalization was already there. Marketing got the idea now.
Right. And most of the chronic diseases, same thing happens. I mean, diabetic, you start taking particular brand of metformin, then you don't change it generally, because the body is adapted to it.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So you mentioned about the new technology and the talent, of course. Because of pandemic, I think the best teacher has been the COVID to digital transformation. So my question is that where will we get the talent, the industry, which is running around for digital talent, but talent is not available? How will they develop that talent, and from where they will hire the talent?
Good. I mean, first thing, organizations like BMA, for example, have some responsibility. Or Kavita madam is here, the management institutes and educational institutions have got that. And I think most of the institutions, like I'm connected with IIT Kanpur or IIIT Jabalpur, where I'm chairperson, we are trying to get the latest learning processes and latest subjects in syllabus. And the new generation who enters these institutions probably are more aware of things. People are now want to become data scientists. Now, data scientist term was not available probably 10 years back. And they understand that the data scientist is a big opportunity, because having information is not sufficient. What use of information you make, how you analyze it is going to be important. So the skills will get developed. But as I said, the senior people like you and me, probably will have to ensure that we also adopt to the new technologies and we relearn ourselves, because if you keep on doing what we were doing before, and in software industry it happened in Y2K era, I think the people were working on COBOL programs and they thought their jobs were secure for life. But COBOL is now history. I mean, people don't even know, the new generation doesn't know probably what COBOL was. And now there are, every 6 months there is a new platform that is coming up. So unless you keep on changing, reskilling yourself, and I think you are the best person to tell about it than me, that why reskilling is so important. And it is very obvious that I think the example that I gave, that grandfather has been taught by the grandchildren on how to use the technology. So your newer employees, the new skilled persons or talent is coming from the next generation, not from the old generation. So unless old generation adopts themselves and get reskilled, otherwise the new generation is waiting to come in, and they are there with, they know exactly how to handle the newer technology fearlessly and without any hitch.
Right, sir. Right. In fact, I have mentioned this particular challenge, which was before pandemic, in my book, Are You a Digital Dinosaur? So that's the reason I asked this question. Some of the participant, Mr. Nipun Sheth, has just mentioned in my direct message that there is a initiative by CII called Digital Saksham, which is extended its training, which is online or offline, to 75,000 entrepreneurs for micro and small enterprise sector. So
yeah.
Similarly, as Nipun, that's exactly what Mr. Ghaisas was talking about, that the institutes, the responsibility for upskilling lies with the institutes like BMA and CII and other people. Sir, there is one interesting question which has come up. Okay, before I ask a question, can I request all the participants to please turn on your cameras so that we can take a virtual group photograph also. So once the group photograph is being taken, we will definitely let you know. Yes, please, everybody is now active and agile. I can see Mr. Arun Chitlangia also, and Manish Shah also is very, very active. Please put your best smile. And if you want, you can put your perfume also. Don't worry, it will be perfumed. And great one. Lakshmi, once it is done, please do let me know that, because photograph is the most important thing in any event, even in the wedding area. So people put Shagan with a group photograph, of course, in the background. So while they are taking the pictures, can I request our senior leader and the past president, Mr. Inderpal Singh ji, to please make a comment on today's, learnings kind of thing.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Jagmohan. Mr. Deepak, I understand the power of technologies that you describe, but, what really worries me is the huge amount of poverty and inequalities that exist in our country and the mediocrity of the services that are dished out. So what kind of mindset our leader or policymakers should have so that these technologies are used productively? I mean, if you look at all the public services, for example, water in Mumbai, or police force, or land records, or electricity bills, if you want to change your address with all the technology in the world, you can't change your address in your electricity bill for 2 to 3 years and things like that. So this is, I suppose, not the problem of technologies, but all the difficulties that the common man faces. So what sort of leadership we require to make good things happen through technology to common people? Your comments, please.
Sure. I think one of the things that probably I should have covered is that one of the basic organization or business that affects all of us is a government. And governance, or e-governance as they call it, is something which is getting in vogue. And all of us, I mean, I would not say, sir, that leadership should do that. I think all of us should demand it. And it is happening. And actually in India, it is happening because every state is coming up with their own e-governance modules. There is a central organization which is trying to make a common platform. But in many states now, the land records, for example, are getting completely digitized. In Mumbai, for example, the birth certificate and death certificates are available without any problem on the digital platforms. The vaccination, you saw how the digital platforms were used and is being used by people. So I think every government is trying to do something. But as you rightly said, the intention has to be very clear, because if land records are made transparent, then probably many people will lose the benefits that they get by keeping it vague. So those are the people who are not going to like it to happen. But what technology brings is the transparency and speed. And you and me as a common citizens, we require or expect from government exactly these two things, which is speed and transparency. And I think technology will provide it. If government's intention is to really provide the transparency and speed, then they will adopt it. But otherwise, you and me as voters, or in democracy at least, democratic country, we should demand this from the governments. And let there be any leader, for that matter, any political party, either a local body or at the central government, I think pressure from people will change it. And that's where the power comes. So I don't believe that leaders will change it. Leaders will facilitate it to happen. But unless we keep that pressure, I mean, today, why banks suddenly adopted core banking? Because customers kept that pressure on them, that we will not do banking with you if you don't give us internet banking, for example. Right? So similarly, I think we should do that to the government, and government should do it. But my belief is that e-governance is becoming a buzzword. There are many state governments who are adopting e-governance. The way in which things happen even in Delhi, in central government, are more on e-governance. I don't have to visit the office. Income tax assessments are happening completely faceless, that I don't have to go to. But the intentions of people have to be the same, because the assessing officer has a wrong intention. He will do something in technology. All of us are smart people. So they will do something to ensure that you come and visit him or her. Right? So the pressure should come from us. I think that will help a lot. But things are happening that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the
Thank you,
answer.
sir, for the question, because I think that I did not cover the government part of it as the technology. The government has to be a great technology user, and that should happen.
Yeah, definitely, sir. ESG is a part of thing, and which I think all the government as well as the corporates and the SMEs
Absolutely.
has to cover ESG
Absolutely.
and the CSR part, of course. That was one of the topics which we had sometime back.
Only problem is that the technologies cannot change the intention.
Intention, that's right.
we as a common citizens can change that intention because we can put the pressure on them.
Yeah. So technology can warn you that you are going on a wrong track, but the decision to not accept is or lies with the human being.
Absolutely. I mean, simple example I'll give you is RBI. We created this anti-money laundering technology, and I think I.V. Reddy was a person at that time as a governor. And so when we inaugurated that, he just made a comment to me saying that, oh, so now we can stop money laundering. I said, no, sir, technology will throw the data. You can choose to ignore it, and then it will not happen. Okay, so technology job is to highlight that data and tell you, and then next action is yours.
Sir, I will ask the last, maybe second last question. One of the dilemmas as a corporate leader and to invest in technology is, you know, if you wait, just like in marriage, you can get a better wife or a better husband. So, for example, it started with the email marketing, then it came to SMS marketing, then it to WhatsApp marketing. So, what should you suggest? Should we wait or should we invest?
No, I think, as I said, good part is that two things. I would say that first is that testing, simulation testing is possible now. So you can always simulate and test it before you get into it, or before you invest into it, because then your decision making is more learned decisions than the groping in the dark. Secondly, I think the way in which the platforms are today, I think you can try all of them together. For example, on SMS, on WhatsApp, on whatever social media which is available, and people are trying to do that. And I can assure you there are more and more newer platforms which are in line, who can do a better marketing job than a simple WhatsApp can do. So adopting it, and I don't think it costs much, because putting a holding is probably costlier than getting onto a WhatsApp campaign or on the Facebook campaign. So you can adopt them, try them out, simulate them and test them before you launch it. But don't have to invest in it at all, because you can always pay for as you use, and hire people with the success fee-based arrangement. And that's what people do now. If you like in BPO industry or KPO, what we call a knowledge process outsourcing, if I collect the money from the client, then I get my commission. I don't get commission for making calls. That's the way the marketing stuff also is happening. So one has to adopt to those kind of models whereby you spend only on success-based stuff, and there are companies who do that job very well because they are proficient in that. But don't lose time. That is important. As I said, innovation, speed, and integration. So speed is very, very important.
That's right, sir. In fact, it's very important that we should keep on experimenting and not wait. Yeah,
exactly.
And we'll become the dinosaurs, of course.
Yeah.
Good to see our old friend, Mr. Amritpal Singh Kalra, over here in this. And a lot of good wishes coming, Mr. Ghaisas, from Manishar. Excellent session, it's saying. So, and at the same time, there are one interesting question. Do you see electric cars can completely remove petrol engines in future? If it happens, how it affects the Gulf countries?
I think, yeah, good question. But Gulf countries, need for electric car came because we realized that these petrol reserves that this planet holds are not going to last forever. They estimate some 100 years more, and beyond that you can't extract petrol economically, right? And what the United States, for example, is doing is they're trying to be self-sufficient, that at some point of time they don't have to rely on Gulf countries. Now, Gulf countries are also, some of them are wiser because they're investing now the petrodollar in the right way, so that when the petrol goes away, they will survive through their investments, and they don't have to go back to their earlier economy where people used to ride on the camels and walk across the deserts. So they are also doing the right things. But all of us know that the petrol is going to finish. Petroleum is going to finish at one point of time, and therefore the alternative is required. Now, whether electric car is a solution, I'm not sure, because the lithium batteries that we're using currently, the lithium is not available if the all car lithium battery. So much of lithium is not there on this planet, so I was told. The research survey shows. And secondly, the amount of electricity that is required to be generated to run these cars, again, the fossil has to be burnt, and we don't know whether that environmentally it is wise. So my prediction is that one day the solar cars will come, or ultimately the atomic generated cars will come to move, or some other technology that we can't even imagine today will be available at some point of time, which will run. But petrol is going to be finished at one point of time. That is very clear. So if you're investing in any company, or if you're in any manufacturing business to manufacture the engine parts, then you need to relook at your model immediately, because another 30 years, probably petrol, diesel engines are not required.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So it comes back to the ESG part, environment, social, of course, as well as the governance part.
Yep.
So thank you so much once again. As we started dot at 5 p.m. It is 6:30. I think there are a lot of other questions coming up, sir. You can send your questions to us in BMA, and we will definitely pass it on to Mr. Ghaisas, and so that we can answer later on. And we'll close on this particular points which Mr. Ghaisas have emphasized: innovation, speed, and execution. And most importantly, speed is very, very important, particularly to adapt ourselves with the changing digital disruption, the digital technologies which are happening. So thank you very much, sir, for your great insights on the digital, innovations or change technologies which are there. And also you suggested some models which we can keep updated and implement it in order to keep ourselves relevant in this fast changing world, and especially which has become more relevant in this pandemic times. So thank you very much once again to you and all the members of BMA and the guests. My request to all the participants that please register yourself for the forthcoming Wednesday webinars and Friday fundas. We have got very exciting programs, and with the speakers, elite speakers like Mr. Ghaisas and many other more. And we are having a special program on 17th on gamification, which is how you can create a customer journey using gamification. And those guests who are not yet a member of BMA, please do become member of BMA in order to get benefits of such kind of sessions and many other conclaves which are going to come, like digital conclave is going to be there, CSR conclave is going to be there, and many other conclaves. It's very easy to become a member. Just go on the website, or you can contact some of the secretariat members who have just posted the link in the chat. Once again, thank you very much. This is Jagmohan Singh Rishi signing off, and Mr. Ghaisas, thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sir. Maybe you can stop the Homi, you're there?